a warm welcome to everyone in our next webinar, the Ars Boni Legal Fest, titled as Legal Design, a New Tool in the Lawyer's Toolbox. This presentation will be held in English. My name is Peter Schmidt. I will be the host of this panel, and let me just give you a few words about our topic. So, legal design is something which makes so much sense that it's incredible to think it's a relatively new kid on the legal tech block. This is how Legal Geek introduced legal design. This is a field which is born at the intersection of design, technology, and law, and it's safe to say that it's one of the hot topics of the future of legal work. By the way, as far as I'm concerned, this is the first presentation ever on legal design in Hungary, so that's certainly a milestone. Our guest for this panel is Antti Innanen, lawyer, legal innovator, legal design pioneer, CEO of Dot.Legal, a legal design service provider based in Helsinki, Finland. So thank you for joining us today, Antti. Before I let you have the floor, just a few bits of technical information on the webinar. First, about the structure. Antti will first give us a 20-30 minutes long presentation about legal design in general, as well as his work as a legal designer. And during and after the presentation, you have the opportunity to ask questions from Antti by using the Q&A function of Zoom. I will be the one reading out those questions to Antti after the presentation. And one more thing, because we are operating in tight time frames, the webinar has to end like 5 minutes before 7 p.m. So you can join the next webinar, but feel free to ask questions. And I'm sure that if this presentation takes long enough and we have to stop it, you still have the opportunity to ask questions from Antti. So that said, welcome everyone again, and Antti, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Peter. Great to be presenting here in Ars Boni Legal Fest. My name is Antti Innanen. I'm the CEO of Legal Design and Legal Tech Studio Dot. And we're based in Helsinki, Finland. I'm currently in Helsinki, and we have offices also in New York, in Alicante. That sounds maybe like a little bit more fancier than it actually is, but I'm moving to Spain in a couple of weeks. So that means that I'm going to open a new office in Spain also. So we're a small player, but very international also. Maybe that shows also that the problems that we're dealing with are very universal in a way. I was going for this kind of like a Steve Jobs type of look, but I forgot my AirPods. So I think I had to borrow these huge headsets. Hopefully the sound is okay. I realized that I don't look like Steve Jobs. I'm giving more like Dr. Evil type of vibes here, but it is what it is. We're trying to still give you a great presentation here, and we have half an hour rapid fire presentation on legal design tools, cases, and also how you could perhaps incorporate legal design in your own work. And perhaps this is the first presentation in Hungary also on legal design. Most certainly, it won't be the last one. So this is something that all lawyers should at least recognize, that this is a kind of like movement happening all over Europe and also in very weird places at the moment. So this is simultaneously happening in Ecuador or in Southern America or in Australia or in Kuwait. You know, all kinds of like different areas are participating into this discussion, and now Hungary is also taking part. So let's start. Let me just share my screen for you guys, and we'll hit it from there, right? So if everything is well, you should be seeing cat banging the keys. Give me thumbs up, Peter, if you can see the intro screen.
Yeah, we can see the presentation.
Excellent, good. So let's go. So legal design, a new tool in the lawyer's toolbox. Actually, I hate the word or the word pair legal design, because you know it's so vague and it's so weird. And I really wish that someday legal design would go away as a term, and it would be just normal legal work for everybody. So this is us, Digital consultancy, and what we're doing is we're doing high-end user interfaces for legal products. So first, let me give you a general introduction to legal design. I'll start off with a story. So my legal design journey began in 2015, more or less, and I just had founded my own law firm, Dot.Legal. And I was helping to put on a disco for kids at my school. So I was selling coffee and candy and wearing funny hats and just organizing a kids disco. And I bumped into one of the organizers in that disco, and he happened to own a design company here in Finland. So we started talking. So and he asked me, like, why does law always have to be so complicated? Why does it have to be so difficult always? And I started defending my position, and I said, like, law is that for a reason. It serves a purpose. It is what it is. It serves a certain kind of purpose, and it needs to be the way that it is. And we had kind of like differing perceptions of what law was. As a kind of like designer, he found beauty in simplicity and functionality. And as a lawyer, I thought it was something else. Maybe it should work in court or be enforceable or something like that. And then we continued speaking, and we thought to ourselves, like, has design thinking ever been applied to law? And I left the school disco thinking, like, this is my moment. I finally discovered something new, and I was sure that I just invented something massive. But of course, when I got home, I did a quick Google search that revealed that I didn't invent anything. I just thought for a little moment that I invented legal design. But we were one of the first party anyway. So Stanford Law School had already established legal design lab, and there were some academics also, most notably Helena Haapio and Stefania Passera, already practicing here in Finland. So we wanted to kind of join the party also, and we found out that the problem was very universal. Law lacked user interface. So in 2017, we held a seminar, a little bit like this, to kind of like gauge the level of interest, like, is this an interesting subject to people? So we had only our own ideas to present at stage, no case studies, no proofs of concept, no nothing, but nonetheless, over 200 people showed up, and we, showed that this was an idea that was kind of like accepted in all corners of the world. And second Legal Design Summit, we had almost 600 attendees already. And like I said, from different areas, from Canada, from Kuwait, from Japan, Australia, all came to Finland and listened about this one. So that one gave us a lot of like strength to pursue this whole idea. Maybe first, the definitions of legal design. Now, we don't certainly own the term legal design, so maybe it's good to have some kind of like room to grow there also. But traditionally, definitions of design focus on very concrete stuff. So it's clothes or buildings or chairs that you design. But turns out that you can design also other things, such as legal documents. And what's more important, you can use that kind of process of design thinking that focuses on creative problem solving. All studies point to the suggestion that companies who apply these methods, grow faster and are more profitable. I don't need to show you any like numbers, but I'm showing them anyway. So Design Management Institute has found out that many design-led publicly traded companies are performing really well. And if you think of like Apple or Coca-Cola or Nike or just like good-looking design-led companies that are just like well thought out of, they're doing pretty good. So we have solid data that design might affect also your bottom line in companies. So that's what we do, try to also do. We try to use design as a resource to innovate more efficiently, successfully, and affect the bottom line also of companies. So it's nothing like soft or mushy. We really try to make an impact also. One thing that I want to talk about is that there is a new profession in the making, a profession that might be interesting for you also. In a way, legal design is front-end development for legal documents. And the idea comes from software development, where it's roughly divided into two professions. You have back-end developers that focus on the data, that focus on the data layer of the things backend, and developers that focus on the front end of things, meaning that presentation, usability, graphic interface. And someone who can do both, focus on the code and the user interface, is usually called a full stack developer. And now you already understand where this one is going. And I want lawyers also to start thinking about this one. Also, lawyers could be full stack developers. So, so somebody who would understand the code of law, but also the presentation and also the user interface could be a full stack lawyer, so to speak. I'm seeing that there's going to be thousands of legal front-end developers. Maybe we need to rebrand the name, legal front-end developer doesn't sound that good, but I'm sure that it's going to be a profession that is going to be very attractive also. And the funny thing is that 95% of the lawyers at the moment are solely focused on the code, on how the code works, but nobody's really interested in how to present that code in an understandable manner to regular people. And that's, I think, where you need those like legal front-end developers. This is how computer programs used to look like. It's wordy, it's unusable, at least for me, it's unusable, not really designed for the user in mind. This is designed for a professional, obviously. I don't know what's happening in here. I have no clue. I have no desire to find out either. And I argue that the law looks pretty much like this at the moment. And if you compare it with, I don't know, this is like a regular warranty clause. I copy pasted this from a general available document, and if you compare this one with the previous screen, you can already see this is code, right? This is just unusable expert code that hasn't been designed at all. Okay, it's written in all caps. Maybe that's a design choice also, but not that well designed. We can all agree. But if you look at your iPhone, for example, you probably have no idea what's happening like inside of the iPhone at code level. But there are many complex calculations, a lot of stuff happening behind that screen, but you can still use it. You have icons and it's designed to be usable. You can still use it, but you don't really have an idea of the complex calculations that go under the hood of the iPhone. So imagine if law could look like this, that it would be usable, but it's still, the code would be untouched there. That there could be a way for a user to kind of like interact with legal documents that would be built on top of the existing code. So that's the whole idea. So we aim to create those touch points with the clients, those user interfaces with clients without breaking the code. Now, the next thing is that we are doing this with a very different type of process that you would normally do legal work. And I've worked as a lawyer. I've started my own law firm also here in Finland. And I know how the regular legal process goes. And it goes more or less like this. Client calls the lawyer or sends them an email, and lawyer uses that information to modify maybe the document that they have, and and they are not doing much like background research. They're trusting their own instincts and own previous experiences to draft the document, and then the document gets sent to the client. Maybe there's one round of revisions, and then you invoice the client, more or less. This is very like a top-down type of approach. So if the client asks me for, let's say, I don't know, could it be like a license agreement, for example? I'm an IP lawyer. I know how to do a license agreement. It's quite easy, quite convenient for me to take something out of our templates and just modify it to fit the situation. And I have done hundreds of license agreements, so I'm pretty confident that I know how to do license agreements. But if you want to do something else, if you want to do like radical improvements or innovations or something bigger than just like one document, then it becomes more complex. Then it becomes, it becomes more difficult. Then the lawyers might not have all the answers either. So that's why we use different type of process in our work, which is modified from service design processes. So we always start with a kickoff workshop where we meet with the client and where we define common goals for the project. Then we assign some kind of metrics, some kind of KPIs to the project, so we know if we have been successful or not with the project. And this is something that you don't really do with regular legal work. You don't assign those KPIs to legal work either. Then we always have some kind of research. We do legal design workshops together with clients and clients' clients. So users, stakeholders, clients. We try to use legal design methods to gather data, to get an understanding of how user sees the documentation. And then we pack everything up, go back to the studio, and draft the first prototype based on that information. So we always expand the problem, gather more information, go back to the lab, and try to condense it into a prototype. Then we open up the prototype again, gather more information, have a validation workshop. Does this work? If the IT can actually deliver this one, is this feasible for the company? Can we make this one to production? So we validate the prototype with the company and then expand it again and then condense it into another prototype. So we try to do a prototype after prototype after prototype, getting closer and closer to the finish line, to the improved version of the documentation, say. Now, you have to be very careful when you suggest this kind of process or when you suggest a top-down process. If the client just wants a simple license agreement, I wouldn't say like, okay, let's organize a workshop and then we'll have a validation workshop and then we'll do a prototype. The client will go like, no, I need the, I need the agreement by tomorrow. Like we can't arrange this, and it's going to be too expensive for the client also. On the other hand, if the client wants to make major improvements or start movements or update their whole contract library, for example, then it doesn't work top down anymore. Then this kind of work is this kind of process is very powerful also. So you have to be very careful which kind of process you suggest for the client. The good things with this one are that you do multiple versions, and you go from bad version to a little bit better to a little bit better. So you're constantly improving. And the bad thing is maybe that this is more resource intensive also and takes more time. So this is suitable for only for certain type of cases. Maybe it's easier to kind of tell what legal design is not than what it actually is. And these are the big three of legal design. I wouldn't call it legal design if it didn't feature all of these three. So first of all, collaboration, super important for legal design. So collaboration between professionals in different business areas such as legal, HR, design, economists, we are still trying to find those like X's where we could combine legal expertise with something else. So this enables us to have multiple viewpoints to the legal problems also. So the idea isn't to make lawyers, designers, or lawyers think like designers. The idea is to foster true collaboration, to understand how designers' mindset works, for example, so you can effectively collaborate with other professionals also. Second one is legal design research. We always do research in our projects. We get a lot of requests that, can you make it look a little bit nicer? Can you just sprinkle a couple of icons in there and just make it look better? And we always refuse that kind of requests, and we don't do drawing, we don't do visualization. We stick to our process, and we always want to have the client's voice also heard in the final document. So if there is no research, it's not legal design for us. Then it's visualization or graphic design just. And third one is that we always want to have this kind of prototypes that are better than the previous ones. So iterative processes. So if it's just waterfall delivery, if I'm just delivering something to you, and there's not this kind of iterations, then it's not legal design, in my opinion. Of course, you might have different kind of interpretations also, but these are the big three for us that we really try to stick to. Like if it's only lawyers doing something without research and just delivering something with a pure waterfall type of structure, then it's definitely not legal design, right? Maybe it's easier to show you a couple of cases so you can see how it looks like in action. And when I have actual cases and a couple of cases that we've just a couple of maybe more imaginary cases. Kanye West recently tweeted that he doesn't really understand any of the contracts that he signed. And I obviously do not agree with everything with Kanye puts out, but he's never too shy to hold his tongue and say something that's important that everybody knows. And he's right. Most contracts suck and the user experience is horrible. And he tweeted all his contracts online, and these are just really difficult. So maybe it would be a good starting point to look at this and see from what kind of perspective these are drafted. Like this is one of the 10 contracts, total of 100+ pages. We can change this also. It doesn't have to look like this. We need to figure out the end user's perspective also, and maybe be part of the change also. I think this was really interesting and a very concrete example of how people sign something that they don't really understand. Now, if you look at these agreements, they're full of legal expertise also. But what if you would add other kinds of elements to that one? And this was just we started playing with the idea with adding little bit graphic design, product design, service design, different things to the simple profit share agreement. Maybe it could look like this in the future. Who knows? We're still trying to get hold of Kanye. If you are personal friends with him, tell Kanye that we are looking for new partners in Dot also. Second case, and this is a real life case. This is not an imaginary case anymore. We worked with Estée Lauder companies. Estée Lauder companies is a big listed firm, listed in New York, and they have 28 sub-brands. So basically, Estée Lauder owns all the brands that you can see at the airport. They wanted us to design a human-centric and visual privacy policy that was also compliant with the GDPR. And when this arrived, we were just super happy about this one because Estée Lauder companies, it's a huge client, so good client, and they had great brands. But then we started thinking okay, it might be a little bit more difficult to design something for 28 different brands that are all very proud of their heritage and what they are doing. And you know, we thought that we might be screwed also here. So this is where we started from. This is very typical, probably written by a magic circle lawyer. You know, if you think of like from a legal point of view, this is really good. Like there is not much that you can add to this one. But if you look at from customers, the client's point of view, doesn't look very inspiring, doesn't look very useful. You know, it's not really well designed. Yeah, you know, they have bolded couple of things here and written something in all caps also, but it's just full of bad design also. So this is where we started from, and this was the final product that we ended up with. And what kind of like saved us in this case is that we were able to use the millennial board also, that then we could get all the brands' voices together from the millennial board that we tested this one with. And so, you know, the end result doesn't look anything like, it's not like magically beautiful or anything like that, but it's very functional. What we essentially did is we cut all the information into 5 different piles and then did visualizations on top of that one, which made it much easier to use and gave kind of like or we made this kind of like a user experience that was usable on top of the existing code. So we didn't touch this code that much, you know, it was good as is. We just built something on top of that code, making it essentially compliant also with the GDPR, where it says that it needs to be legible also, it needs to be usable for the common person. For MAC Cosmetics, we did something that resembled an Instagram story role. So they wanted us to design something for their influencers. And if there's something I know about influencers is that they don't want to read lengthy contracts. So we tried to emulate that kind of like digitally native way of communicating information. So we converted a contract into like a story role. We essentially forced them to go through the contract, showing them different stories and then downloading it on the last page. So I think that we did good job there emulating the way that influencers typically communicate. So maybe they actually read the contract also, because it, you know, might remind them of how they consume information anyways. The Finland Arbitration Institute was another case. So they wanted to design a solution that informs, engages, and kind of like serves as a map of what they are actually doing. There's intense competition between different arbitration institutes, and it's quite complex also. So what we did is we did workshops with the users, try to discover the pain points, try to kind of like convert the information into a map that would be easy to follow. So here's the final product, you know, before very lengthy text, afterwards something that you could actually click on, something that you could zoom in and zoom out. Again, the design isn't anything magical, isn't anything crazy, but it functions really well in this case. One more, this is Dotter's general terms. So this is where we started. The left column, pretty basic terms and conditions. And we tried, we got quite a lot of pushbacks and also comments from people. So people were redlining our terms and conditions and sending them back. And obviously that's not what we wanted them to do. We didn't want to invite any comments because, you know, that's how terms and conditions function pretty much, that they are closed already. So we redesigned them for our own law firm also. We realized that, okay, we need to redesign our own documents also that our documents look pretty horrible. And we did this like very basic 2-column model where the brand voice on the right column guides you through the documentation. And we realized that it's much easier to send these ones to prospective clients also. We had different colorways for different kind of clients also. I always use the pink one. I always like to send this document because it was the first touch point with the client and showed that we were actually pretty high quality office, that even the first touch point with the client, even our own terms and conditions were properly designed. It doesn't make any sense to send your client as a first document the left-hand column document, right? It doesn't make any sense because that's the first introduction. That's where you start your journey together. And then I want to go very briefly through a couple of tools that we're using here because these are also quite important for us. We are using different kind of tools than regular law offices are using. We might do a customer journey map where we try to map out the key milestones in the customer journey. This is copied from service design firms, but it functions really well in the legal world also. Then we try to discover bottlenecks or pain points or in general get the customer's insight also before doing anything ourselves. And this is where designers and lawyers think very differently. Lawyers always trust their own like intuition. They are always like willing to work without any background information. They're trained that way. Designers always want to know how the client or the client's client would perceive something and get and design based on that. So we try to discover those kind of like pain points, bottlenecks, or good things or bad things about the prototypes, and then improve based on that information. And then obviously we do a lot of personas also, and that enables us to kind of like look at the problem from the customer's point of view, to kind of like flip the idea of where we are looking at the legal problem. And we are trying to set up our own legal design school also. It's still in the making, but hopefully we can at some point teach people also how to use these methods, how to kind of like get into this business also, that I think will give a lot of law firms competitive edge also. Nowadays, it's just difficult to stand out. Everything is the same flavor, everything is vanilla, but all at the same time, all legal service providers say that they're probably providing high quality legal advice. But if you scratch the surface a little bit and watch their end products and measure it from client's point of view, the quality might be perceived very, very differently. Typically, clients hate the end products that especially bigger law firms are delivering. But we can change that, of course. We can change that by looking at the problem from different perspectives also, and we know the methods of how to do it also. So maybe someday we can teach also these to other people. So legal design school is opening this autumn. So hopefully you will be interested in that also. Something that I want to show you, this is the last thing that I'm going to show you, but it's maybe one of the most important ones. We always try to assign some kind of metrics to our projects. We always want to assign KPIs or objectives and key results or something like that. We've rebranded it legal design outcomes, but this is super important that we set those goals for a project that we try to achieve. We always try to strive for 2 or 3 very realistic goals. So easy accessibility for all end users, reduce the number of calls that the call center gets, or something like that. Very concrete, very like normal goals, and then one like moonshot, one something like that would be like lead the discussion or receive spontaneous feedback or something like that would be harder to achieve. And both are equally important. It's these design documents, they need to function, and they need to function in real life also. So you don't want to go overboard with the design at the same time, we're trying to still change the world. So we don't want to be too conservative either. These are my three kind of like final things how you could kind of like change your mindset perhaps into and learn from different professions also. First one is stay curious, and by that I mean like there's always something that you can learn from other professions. There's always something happening. You know, watch what developers or service designers or architects or economists or artists are doing, and try to kind of like bring their perspective into legal work also. At least for us, it has worked really, really well. And I'm really hungry of like trying to discover like what are people thinking like software development, for example, and how could I like kind of like tweak those findings and apply them to legal work also. Second one is beginner's mindset. I talked about the beginner's mindset already, the mindset between like the lawyers and designers, for example. And I think that could be really really good for you because you start questioning a lot of things also. So switch from that kind of like expert mindset to beginner's mindset, and suddenly you'll encounter a lot of like different problems also, and different kind of like it unlocks a lot of things in your thinking also. So stay curious, develop this kind of like designers or beginners mindset. And third, and this is really important, and this is how I learned also legal design, is hang out with diverse groups of people. Like contact your old buddies from you know, way back when you worked in law school. So meet tech or design people and go to their events or meetings, or sit next to them, or eat lunch with them, or do an internship at a service design firm, or do a secondment at a tech startup or something like that. So stay curious on how you could collaborate with your old buddies from different fields. Try to get to like close proximity, try to like sit next to them, because that's how you immerse yourself in a different kind of culture, and then you'll get very important feedback for your own work. And also, you know, I find that's the best way to learn also how to do design. Do an internship at a service design firm, you'll return to your law firm with a lot of fresh new ideas also. So the whole idea of legal design is learning how to collaborate efficiently with other professions, not necessarily to learn how to design yourself or be a designer yourself. Good designers are so far ahead also that it's not even funny anymore. Just like lawyers are really far ahead of designers in their own profession, the key is collaboration here. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation here. I think that we've managed to do it under 40 minutes. Now, if you have any questions, please shoot me the questions, and Peter will moderate this discussion. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for this very interesting presentation of legal design. There are several questions, so I will just get to it because the time frame is tight. So András Német is asking, how is it different from, for example, privacy dark pattern that is used for manipulating users to share more personal data than they will do otherwise? I think how it is different, how legal design is different from this kind of privacy dark patterns.
I mean, it's not necessarily that different. You know, if you do, you know, there's a certain responsibility when you're designing documents also. So you can't use, and you have to be aware of those dark patterns also. So you are absolutely right that it's you are very responsible as a designer to not to use those dark patterns, to not influence people in the wrong way. But typically, if designer does their job really well, and there's control groups of people also there, and you're testing with actual clients also and listening to their needs, that kind of like protects you, shields you also from that kind of like dark patterns. If you test it with actual clients, if you really listen the feedback of clients. But I completely agree with you. A lot of design is filled with dark patterns also, and that's the designer's ethical responsibility to not to use those, but also maybe to guide the client also not suggesting something like that. So that's very important to keep in mind also when designing legal documents.
All right, next question.
Yes.
An anonymous attendee asked that. Thank you for your awesome presentation. I would like to ask how crowded the market is with legal design companies.
I mean, the market isn't that crowded yet. To be fair with you, the market isn't there yet. So it's not very crowded because there isn't much demand yet for these kind of services. So most of the companies that are, at least somewhat successful here are still forced to sell this one pretty heavily to their clients. So, I'm estimating that this will be a big market in the future. Currently, there is not many design companies. I know pretty much everybody who is working in this field, and there aren't that many. So I think that this would be a good sign for bigger companies to build their capabilities, or just, start something together with your designer friends, for example. Ideal time to enter the market, and we welcome all the competition also. I think it would be really good for us to have good competition in all areas in the world. Yeah.
All right, next question from Peter Todt. How do you explain the different nature of legal work from traditional legal work to clients? Clients usually call lawyers to ask for, e.g., a contract, and they don't want to spend time with the project, even though the proper solution is not only a contract.
This is something that takes quite a lot of time and effort, and you're right that you need to kind of like guide the client also to see the value of this kind of like different work. Maybe, if you show them encouraging examples of, like, let's say insurance company Lemonade that is working now in US. They are crowdsourcing their insurance policies, for example, taking a totally new approach into what is insurance and how you could do insurance policies, and they're massively successful, branding wise and also like a numbers wise. And the whole idea of kind of like opening up your like kind of like dirtiest secrets, which legal stuff usually is pretty dirty still, gives that kind of like different kind of value for companies also. So companies who kind of like get this kind of value can also craft really great stories out of this one. They can change their whole legal department. They can just do so many things with this one that they experience a lot of value also. But if they want like a simple document, you have to be you can't suggest something like this. Otherwise, it's just selling snake oil and not really bringing value to the client. So you have to be careful of what you're suggesting. Simple documents, you go with simple process. Difficult things, if you want to start a movement or make big improvements or be very innovative in certain area, maybe this would be the process that you could use then.
All right, next question is from Regina Berke. Do you have any tips on how to implement legal design or design thinking ideas into your work when you are in a junior position? It seems to me that maybe I have to have my own firm to implement major changes. The areas we work in are still quite conservative, even in international firms and multinational companies.
Maybe, if you're in a junior position, you have that's internship at a service design firm or secondment at the tech company or something like that would be one way of building your own capabilities also in this area, or studying at a design or service design at a university or other reputable place. That would be one way of kind of like building your own capabilities. But if you want to kind of like spread the love in your own firm and you're in a junior position, find a partner that could champion this one. Usually the older partners understand the value of this kind of work also. Find a big client and offer them something different, like I think that the senior partners see the value in this kind of things because they know the value of like branding and standing out from other service providers also. So maybe find a like-minded, smart partner that would understand the value of legal design and try to build the capabilities together with that partner and try to test it out with their big clients. Try to make their big clients happy and probably you can then get more buy-in.
All right. Next question. We still have like 10 minutes. As a startup with some legal background, how would you start turning your horrible legal documents into user-friendly ones?
Well, first of all, I would think like, I would maybe, if you have access to your actual customers, I would just ask the customers, like, how do our legal documents look like? How do they feel like? And just start gathering that kind of information from your actual clients. I mean, they might even like it if you organize that kind of event where you can openly criticize your ugly looking legal documents, and starting from that kind of like from the user's point of view. And also you probably have brand guidelines, brand tone, brand voice, that kind of like guidelines already. If you're just starting, maybe you don't have, but you have kind of like the general tone of how the brand speaks to their clients. Use the same tone in your legal documents also. That is kind of like an easy hack of implementing. Like the legal tone doesn't have to be so unfriendly either, and it doesn't have to be so white label. The document doesn't have to use your colors and your logos and your brand tone, and ask your clients what they think of your documents. There's your easy hack of how to start implementing a little bit of legal design into your own documents.
All right. Question from Michelle. Amazing work. I am myself a lawyer and love being creative in my spare time, so I guess legal design is a perfect mixture. Do you work with graphic designers at Dot, or are you all just very creative lawyers and planning the outlooks, for example, on an application?
No, we have built our own capabilities a little bit, and I like to think of myself as a creative person also. But when you work with a talented graphic designer, for example, you'll soon realize that the shit that you are designing isn't worth anything, So that's why I try to design my own stuff also, and I've realized that we need that kind of like true collaboration. I'm a firm believer that it's difficult. Like these people have gone to school for several years. And they have a lot of experience also. It's not something that lawyers can take just one course, or even if they would think that they're creative persons, usually if you work with a good, talented graphic designer, for example, you'll end up with a much better end result. But the trick is like, if you know how to use the programs, and if you know how to kind of like, if you know enough about design, if you know yourself also how to design something, then it becomes so much easier to communicate with designers also. Then it becomes so much easier to work with other people. So build your own capabilities, but also trust other professionals that have been doing this for longer than you have. That's my advice.
Okay, if anyone else has a question, this is your last chance, because I still have a question. I waited to ask this. So do you have any experience with using legal design for documents in like a judicial or administrative procedure setting, like a statement of claims, for example?
Yes.
And what really interests me is, do you think that a better designed legal document can have an actual impact on like a court decision? So can it have this kind of psychological subliminal effect of swinging the courts or the judge's favor towards the opinion to the judge to you? You understand?
Very interesting, very interesting. I think that because of my background in in certain type of law. I used to be an IP lawyer, brand lawyer. I think that our clients are now like bigger listed firms, for example. But I think that the true potential of legal design lies in those like other kind of documents. And to be honest with you, it gets a little bit old also, like visualizing privacy policies for bigger companies. Like that doesn't have that kind of impact. So I'm really wishing that this whole movement would go towards like access of justice and those bigger problems that we would have in society. I think that legal design would have immense potential also in court cases, and kind of like visualizing and making it easier to digest the information. If you've ever been to court, you know that it's a mess. You know, like it's so difficult to communicate everything clearly to the judge. For example, there if you have like beautifully designed like maps or visualizations or something like that, I'm sure that there's a lot of potential in that also. So,
all right, and one last question from Zsolt. Personal question.
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned Alicante as the location of a new office.
Yes.
Fell in love with the city during the OHIM times, or is there a purely business-driven reason?
Well, there's a reason for that. Sure. The reason is that that my wife is working there, and I'm following her with my whole family. So that's the simple reason. It's not really a business reason that I'm moving to Alicante. You know, I've lived there before also. So my wife got a good position there. So that's why we are moving. Nothing related really to legal design. But I guess that it's not that a bad place to work either. And maybe I'll have more Spanish clients also, but we are working 100% remote with clients with all over the world. So I'm guessing that you know I can work from Alicante also.
Right, since it's almost time's up, let's just put an end to the presentation here.
Okay.
And thank you for joining us in this webinar.
I don't
usually use this word, but I really found it inspiring. So and very thought-provoking.
Good.
So that was the first ever legal design presentation or webinar in Hungary. And thank you again for joining us, and thanks for everyone for joining us. And just a few words about our next presentation or webinar. It's titled Boldogok a jogtanácsosok? Ha megismernéd, hogy milyen üzleti és soft skill-ekre lenne szükséged jogtanácsosként, akkor csatlakozz az Arcboni jogtanácsosi karrierről szóló beszélgetéséhez. És Révész Gábor, a Tesco vezető jogásza, illetve Oroszi Dóra jogtanácsos lesznek a vendégeink. So, ott is szívesen látunk mindenkit. And thank you again, and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Ciao, bye.